whether it's like a bag or the lunchbox, the thermos, can your kid independently open it? And you should test that before you send it to school on the first day, because if they can't get into it, there might not be someone who can help them open it, and they might miss lunch because they can't get into one compartment.
Welcome to Didn't I Just Feed You?
A podcast about feeding kids.
Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Stacy. Welcome back. Is it a welcome back? Hopefully you've been listening.
We weren't really gone.
I know, not at all, actually. But in case you missed it this summer, we kept things short and sweet in our Summer Solutions episodes that are still relevant for at least the rest of this month. So go back and catch up. But in the meantime, this week, we're returning to real life. And I'm just going to say, I resent this a little bit. We have to do it every year in early August because so many people return to school, including you, Megan, right about now. In fact, I think today, the day we publish this episode, your kids are going back to school.
Yes.
I still have a month left of summer, but here I am showing up for everybody, talking about back to school.
Okay, so wait, I need to understand, what is the resentment? Like, you're mad that our kids are back in school and you still have, or it's just you don't want to be in back to school
I don't want to be in back to school mode. It stresses me out. Like, why am I talking about back to school? Like, I'm still full on in summer mode. I have a whole month left.
I know,
but that's okay. I'm actually just being dramatic because for fun, for effect.
You're a Leo.
Because I'm a Leo. So anyway, this week we're going to be talking about lunchboxes. What you need and what you don't need if you're planning to pack lunches for your kids this year, right? Because back to school is kind of synonymous with back to school shopping for a lot of people, but it can also be a money pit time of year, and we're like ahead of the holidays, which can be really hard on people's budgets. So we're not going to just talk about what you need. We're also going to talk about a few things we think you don't need.
Before we get into that, though, let us invite you to the best place on the internet, our listeners community. There's a totally free message board that anyone can join with just an email that includes a meal planning support, a recipe and product suggestions, and direct access to us, your other favorite people on the internet.
And if you're able to support Didn't I Just Feed You, we would love to have you in our community membership. So this summer, we actually changed things up with our membership options, and we now offer more choices at affordable prices, and we'd love to have you all supporting members too if you're able. And we've got some new member benefits too. We think you'll like it, including Didn't I Just Feed You recipes. We add one a week. I say that every time because I think that's really special and cool of us. So to learn more, go to didn'tijustfeedyou.com/community.
Okay, I was going to ask you to kick us off if you're feeling ready for back to school season, but I will not, because I already know that you're not ready to talk about this yet.
I've been dealing with school lunches for so many years that I have some super duper tried and true recommendations. My list will probably be a little smaller than yours, but it's stuff that has literally lasted so many years. My kids are 15 and nearly 13.
Oh my goodness.
Is that
I'm not
crazy?
ready.
It
is crazy, but it's also cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I do think, though, my list is not very long. And I think this is like the ethos, the thesis we're trying to get to in this episode, which is to say that food media for a long time has taken the opportunity in August to be like, here are all the lunch packing supplies that you have to have. And between us, we've packed lunches for 15 years?
Yep.
Like if you add up,
yep.
I've even had years off where my kids were exclusively doing school lunch, but now I'm back in the swing of it. All that experience, and we can tell you, you really don't have to buy all of the things.
Totally. Okay, so wait, this year you are packing lunches again. Full time?
I am. I hope it won't be full time.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the shift was, but when we were living in Boise, the kids were at a Title I school, so everyone got free lunch even before the universal free lunch program. And I think that Ella at first was like, oh, I like it, like school lunch
Yeah.
looks good.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm excluded because all my friends are doing school lunch. So that was great.
Yeah.
That was great for many years because I just didn't even have to worry about it. And now in Chattanooga, we are at a school that is not a Title I school. You know, last year there was universal free lunch. I don't know what it will be this year. Is that returning?
I believe it is, but I'm not positive. Okay.
Yeah,
Our community will report back to us too.
they will, right? And I wonder if it's different in different states too. So we'll see how all of that susses out. But there's this added layer that at her new school, a lot of people bring lunch. And
Interesting.
if you don't bring lunch, you have to have your school lunch number memorized. So that was like a roadblock for both Ella and Emmett, where they were like, I don't even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I just want to bring lunch.
Okay.
So they're requesting lunches again.
Got it.
Starting this week.
Got it. And Daisy's really pissed about it. I haven't packed school lunches in a long time, actually, at this point. I guess since COVID, because then once the kids came out of COVID, they were respectively in middle school, Oliver, high school, Isaac. And so they eat school lunch. Isaac also gets a little stipend for food in general that he can choose to use to buy lunch outside. We live in New York City, if you guys haven't listened before. So it's really easy for him to like walk a block and get anything from a slice to a chopped cheese at the deli or whatever. Side note, the other day, Isaac declared that he could eat his entire diet from a deli. That's what he said. He was like, I could do it. He's like, I'd start the day with a bacon, egg, and cheese. Then I would get a chopped cheese for lunch. Then I'd get all my snacks and drinks. And I was like, what would you eat for dinner? He's like, I don't know, salad. So I was like, okay. So that's a glimpse into his future. Anyway, but I packed school lunches. I was that person who probably 10 years ago on my list of things you need included things like cute cookie cutters. And that's not on my list anymore. So maybe we can just talk about a few things that do feel like extra and you don't need, but are fun and or helpful without too much work during certain seasons of packing school lunches.
I love that. And I think there's also the added layer of like what you like to pack for lunch might be enhanced by a couple of key products, but not everything in the kitchen cabinet.
Totally.
Yes.
Okay, Megan. So we said you're going to start. Let's do it. Let's hear your list.
Do you want my list is very boring?
Okay. What a way to
get
the people excited.
Last year we had one lunch box and one lunch bag for each kid. And they were actually different. I'm not sure which of the Planet Box lunch boxes he had, but we'll find it and link to it.
Well, how many compartments?
I think it's 3.
Okay.
So it's like one big one, a medium-sized one, and a small one.
Okay, so that's different than the one that I've always used. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll look it up. I don't know the name of that one.
But he got annoyed towards the end of the year that the things were sliding together. So
I have never had that happen.
I mean, I think it's like I would, for as an example, sandwiches.
Yeah.
I would use the larger compartment to put a sandwich and then like next to it put chips.
In the same compartment.
In the same compartment, in the same well.
Yes, I got it.
And he wouldn't like that.
There, Mom, every well has a single item.
Yes. On the flip side, Ella has had this Pottery Barn Kids plastic lunchbox that is also one of my favorites. In anything I've ever written, I've linked to both this Planet box and this Pottery Barn one. So they each had 2 different ones. And this year I bought them each one of the other. So now Ella also has a Planet box and Emmett now also has this Pottery Barn one. The Pottery Barn one I love because it's lightweight. It's dishwasher safe, and it has more smaller compartments, including one that closes for either like a treat or condiments. So I think that will remedy Emmett's issue with the things sliding together for certain meals that will be packed as lunches. And then they each have lunch boxes that match those.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
So I've wondered this before because my boys always had one lunchbox the whole
Yeah.
year. And actually, I'll talk about this. Those lunchboxes lasted many, many, many years. So I never switched it up where today you're having this kind of lunchbox and today this kind of lunchbox. And I feel like that really simplified things for me because I was like, this is the number of wells I have to fill. It's a lunch. It's a sorry, not a lunch, like a main, if you
Hmm.
will, a vegetable, a fruit, a snack, done. And like, it was the same formula. I could go on autopilot. They knew what to expect. How do you decide which lunchbox? Because I've seen that you kind of like switch it up. One day Ella might have this kind of lunchbox, and another day she'll have that kind of lunchbox.
Yeah, I mean, last year I really
Did
did
away.
not. Yeah, they each had their one and they were different. And that was like for the most part was honestly really fine. Like even if they had the exact same lunch, Ella's was just broken up into more compartments in a different way than Emmett's was. And so in general, I wouldn't be like, yes, you should have two lunch
Got it.
boxes for every
Okay, cool.
kid. The only pain point we ran into was like making sure that the lunch boxes got
Yeah.
washed every night. And that was actually more like a pain point between Brian and I, because I like to pull them out right after school, empty them, and then either wash them right away if it makes sense to, like, oh, I have an empty sink, or they get washed with like dinner stuff. And Brian will, if he's like brings the kids home, he won't even deal with it. So we definitely had very few mornings where he was like, oh, shoot, I forgot to pull the lunch boxes out. And it's like a morning scramble to get them
Yeah.
washed and ready because then you have to dry them.
Now that they're older, Megan,
I know. I know what
this
you're going to
is, yep,
say. I just don't
my kids
know if it's
are
going to happen.
so I would stand over them. I mean, listen, it depends on your situation. Are you home with your kids? Like the advice I'm actually giving to you, Megan Squad, right now. And I hope it can work for some other people. If you're not home, a caretaker, I mean, presumably if you have smaller kids, somebody is there with
Yes.
them, right? To help them, whether they're coming home after school or after aftercare. Take your lunchbox out of your bag right now. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And your thermos straight into the dishwasher. And like they'd open it, they'd dump it, and they'd put it into the dishwasher. And that became part of our routine because definitely by second or third grade, because we started to have the same problems. It was sort of a precursor to them doing their own laundry.
Okay. I love it. And maybe we'll try. I think I've been really in general, this is general, not just lunch
Yeah.
boxes, very easy on my kids because, especially Emmett, like he started
Yeah.
school in the pandemic.
Yep.
So it's just like, let me take care of you in this way. But this summer has been really focused on getting them to do their own self-care and feed themselves and stuff.
Yes.
So it would make sense that would carry into the school year. Maybe I'll try it today when they come
Yes.
home.
And I want to tell you, this was back in, gosh, maybe May. I listened to an episode of the Lisa D'Amour. Do you know who she is?
I have no idea.
Oh, she's so wonderful. She's a great Instagram too. And she is a child psychologist who's the lead parenting expert editor at the New York Times. She has her own podcast. And I listened to an episode that was geared more towards older kids, high schoolers. Like it's usually answering people's questions. And it was about high schoolers taking a long walk to school. Either way, she very specifically said, I'm seeing a lot of this in our questions in my practice. Parents parenting out of guilt because of what our kids have been through over the last few years. And she was saying that she totally understands, it totally makes sense, and that there is an element of caring for our children that's really necessary because it has been really difficult for them and they are having increased anxiety, increased depression, especially the older kids, but all kids really. This has been tough on them. But that whenever we parent out of guilt, we rob them of opportunities to become more independent. And I was really thinking about it with Isaac and taking the subway, but it's just amazing that like, you know, you can go down the ages and like just a little thing like it feels like you're caring for them by like taking care of their lunchbox and like being in charge of that. but actually like it can feel good to them, even though they're going to scoff at it. It feels good to take care of yourself. It feels good to feel capable,
Yeah, I
right?
actually don't think Emmett will scoff at it. And not that
My kids would
I think
and did.
I think we should do a whole episode about mom guilt because I think it's a really interesting subject when it comes to how we feed our kids and how
Yeah.
we show up for them. I don't feel guilty. I do feel like it's out of like I'm not doing the things that I've been doing for the last year out of feeling bad for them or feeling guilty for them, but it is a love thing where I'm like I just want to pour love into them. And so that's that.
Yeah.
But it's good advice. We should do a listeners group exclusive about mom guilt, and we should get back to what lunchboxes you have. You've had them forever. You're still using the
Forever.
same
Well, we don't pack
lunchboxes.
lunches anymore.
Yeah.
But we literally had them from the time that Isaac, who is now a sophomore or about to go into his sophomore year in high school, since he was in kindergarten. Planet Box. It was before Planet Box blew up. We have the Rover, which has the 4 compartments, the 4 wells, and then a little one in the middle. And the way that we solved some of the problems that you feel your Pottery barn lunchbox solves is that they actually have something called the big round dipper and the little round dipper, which are these flexible containers that are made to fit into some of the wells that are round so that you can also seal them. And back when I bought them, it was like a tiffin, those tiffin boxes.
Yeah.
Where it was stainless steel container and stainless steel top. But now I believe it's a silicone top that you stretch over the top that's really easy to peel off, but really keeps a good seal. And they also make these little silicone cups, for lack of a better word. They're kind of like those silicone muffin tins.
Yeah.
Right? But they're differently, like there's small ones, medium ones, and big ones that are made to fit into their compartments. So that if in one of the wells you want to put cherry tomatoes and carrot sticks and you don't want them to touch or something like that, you could put one of these little cups, fit it in, and now you can fit 2 things in one well pretty easily. So that was it. Like we use that all the time. The one other thing I will say is that Planet Box makes a sleeve for their lunch boxes. And then they also make a lunch box, which is a little bigger, a little bulkier, and has a pocket in the front for the water cup. My kids never wanted to carry a second lunchbox. So again, this depends on how much stuff they're carrying, how big their backpack is. But for a long time, at least from Oliver grade 2 or 3 onward, we just bought a sleeve and it kept it really like slim and compact. And their ice packs are also really thin and flexible. So I could fit an ice pack in the sleeve. And then that went into his backpack so that everything was in one big bag, one big, probably too heavy bag. But there you go. That was their preference. That was their preference.
Yes, we have the lunch bags for the Planet Box. And I don't put their water bottles in that. Sometimes we use that pocket for like a dry snack that goes with lunch, but not always. And then Ella has like her favorite lunch bag is like not from a Journeys. It's like a kid's store that doesn't exist anymore. And everything was like glittery. So it's like bright glitter.
That's awesome. So
it's so hard to clean. And I just want to say that when you're thinking about lunch bags, can you throw it in the washing machine?
Yes. That's a great one. So the liners for Planet Box are not washable in the washing machine. So I would say that the Planet Box, I just want to acknowledge this. They're expensive. They're expensive lunch boxes.
They are.
But we would use ours multiple years in a row. I did not buy a new lunchbox every year. And they are dishwasher safe. So literally you can just dump out the food, put it in the dishwasher, all the pieces too that I mentioned. And then the sleeve, once a week, I would turn inside out and it's got that like plasticky insulated inside and I would wipe it down. But I will definitely say by the end of the year, the sleeve was gunky and yucky. So the one thing I bought every September was a new sleeve. Okay. But everything else I used over and over and over year after year.
Yeah. I think that's the point we're trying to get to say, listen, you do not have to buy a new lunch bag, lunch box every single year.
Yeah.
Too.
For sure.
Like if you're thinking about costs and maybe instead this year you want to buy like some more accessories. Like you mentioned the Planet Box, their little silicone cups. I know those are like really popular for people who pack lunch on the regular, like a lot of lunches. I'm trying to avoid saying that they're popular on Instagram, but I think that that's also true. Like you see them a lot in bento
Yeah,
boxes. And
totally.
it's funny that you mentioned them because that's one of those things where I feel like you don't necessarily need those little silicone sleeves if that's not like how you pack lunch. And so they're not necessary to buy, even if you see them everywhere on
For sure.
Instagram and Pinterest.
Also, the silicone muffin tins, if you have those for when you bake muffins, just will mold. They just don't fit quite perfectly, but they totally work to do the same thing.
Yes.
There would be things like chocolate covered raisins that I want to put next to some
Apple
Doritos
slices.
or something like that, or
Yes.
apple slice, right? That you don't want to mix. And I found them convenient, but they're definitely, I wouldn't say they're necessary, but I would say that they were like higher on my list of just like
Yeah.
helping me, because I really get back to this idea of wanting to like hit a formula that works, where even before I've had my coffee, I know exactly what elements I'm going for. Even when I go to the supermarket and I don't have my shopping list, I know I need some lunchbox veg. I know I need some fruit veg. I know I need some snacks. I know I need some like sandwich bread or something to make, whether they're wraps or English muffins or pita pockets or something bready, and whatever protein of choice. Those categories would help keep me organized even in my not organized moments.
I mean, I love that. And I think using that as the lens for what to buy is super helpful. I am like cringing. This is the thing about being in food media for so long, thinking about sometimes recommending to people that they buy the tiny and very cute bento box condiment squeezers.
Totally.
Or
the little
how
picks.
I told the little picks.
Yes.
I do actually kind of love the little picks. I'm going to be honest
I
with
bought
you.
those. I bought the squeezers. I never used them.
Ella, occasionally when she packs her own lunch, she will reach for the little picks. I think she thinks it's very fun.
Yeah, it is. So those are the kinds of things that it depends on your kid too. All right. So what else have you purchased since we're here? I do want to talk about thermoses and some other things, but while we're here, what are some things that you purchased that then you totally did not use or you used for a hot minute?
You know what? The like refillable squeezy pouches?
Yes.
I definitely bought those with the specific idea that like, oh, I can put tomato sauce in them and then pack like DIY Lunchables with like sandwich thins. No, just like pack it. One, it's too much tomato sauce if you fill it all the way, like just too much. It's a recipe for tomato sauce being all over the inside of the lunch bag.
Yes.
Ask me how I know.
Yep.
It's much better to get like small, very well lidded containers.
Yes.
The ones I have right now are from Rubbermaid. I actually think they came in a like Rubbermaid set for the lunch containers,
Yeah.
but I'm only using the little round like condiment or dressing containers. They have a screw top lid. It's like an ounce. It's the perfect amount.
That's how we feel about the Planet Box little round dipper.
Okay.
So
you love it.
Well, it serves that purpose. And again, it's like a one and done set. Like I know it fits. So like, but yes, like I would put a little tomato sauce or even honey, or I would do sometimes yogurt with passion fruit, which was something that Oliver used to like. So I'd put some fresh passion fruit and honey in the little container and then yogurt, and then he could put it together himself.
Oh, that's so cute. Okay. What have you bought that you would never buy again?
Those condiment squeezer BS ridiculousness.
Because also they forget, like, especially if you have little kids and you have so much exuberance for packing cute lunches, they're too little to like keep track of that stuff. And you end up with like lids and containers that don't match because they didn't bring all the parts home, and chasing them around in your Tupperware drawer. Never again.
The little picks. And then the other thing is, I think that one time I went to like a Japanese department store and got really excited and bought egg and rice molds to like shape hard-boiled eggs into cute things.
Yes.
So you take them right after, you peel them as soon as they come out of the water. They're still warm. You put them in the egg shaper, you press it down, and then you leave it in there, and then it kind of takes the shape of a little character. Same with like rice molder. Like I was going to make rice balls. I did not. Like I'd rather just give you a container of rice and shake some for kake on it and take leftover whatever
Yes.
sausage and put it all and make a rice bowl instead of a rice ball. Those are the things that I did not need.
That made me think of last summer before school started. I bought the like sandwich presses. It's like a cookie cutter, but it also like seals the side. So you can make like basically Uncrustables without. I think because our former guest, Amy Palagian, on her Instagram at Yummy Toddler Food, was like, oh yeah, you can make DIY Uncrustables. And Ella actually kind of loves Uncrustables. I don't buy them, but they used to have them at school in Boise as a choice. I was like, this is going to be great. I never even attempted to use them. It wasn't like I used them and they were rejected. They're just literally sitting in the lunchbox tub.
I think that the idea of novelty lunches is something that you should pass on unless you have a specific goal and the budget for it. Like if your kid's really having a hard time eating at school and they're like, oh, it's the time, or they're talking, or I don't have enough, and they're distracted, whatever it is. So there are lots of instances where I can imagine through a season, you're really trying hard to get your kid to eat more food at lunchtime so that they aren't totally insane at the end of the school day. Then I would invest in a couple of little inexpensive things that you think would work for your kids. I'm curious. I kind of want you to use the Uncrustable thing.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of curious. Like, that's something to me that if I was struggling to get my kid to eat lunch, I can imagine grabbing. Like, that would work for my kid.
Yeah. I have these same thoughts. And also this idea of like, oh, I can take a basic sandwich and make it seem like without very much effort, make it seem somehow more exciting, more appealing.
Yes. I love cookie cutters for that. I know I made a joke about it at the top, but you can actually use cookie cutters for other things.
Yes.
And they're fun.
And cookie cutters that you already have, not like lunchbox. This is almost feels like a lunchbox specific. And I'm like, I probably could have done the same thing with like the ball jar ring or even just my round nesting cutters.
Exactly. That's such a great, thank you for saying that.
And a fork. Like I could have done exactly. Yes, all of that. Lunchbox specific silverware. I've never purchased.
Me either. Never.
I just have some cheap, like Target, and cheap's relative, right? Inexpensive Target plastic fork, like kids' forks. They're brightly colored. And so that's why I like packing them in lunchboxes because I feel like the kids can keep track of them more readily. But
I just use our regular forks.
I will also not send silverware.
Yeah, I didn't send silverware as a matter of course, but I just used our regular silverware. I don't think I had anything special except these little cocktail forks that I got from West Elm for like a cheese board. Oliver likes it because it's just small. Like he likes like small, cute things. So he was like, that's so cute. Can I use a little tiny fork? Even when he was like in 5th grade and big. So yeah. What about napkins?
I do have from Dot and Army some like lunchbox napkins that I've sent and they've come home. I'm not consistent in using them. I don't think that it's essential. What about you?
Yeah, I had a pack of square little cloth napkins that I sent every day. I mean, sometimes I would forget, but I was trying not to use paper towels all the time. And my kids definitely are messy eaters. They needed a napkin. Yeah. And they would complain if they didn't have one. And then I would just, we'll link to a pack. It's not the exact pack I had, but it's just plain colors. You can find ones in tons of cutesy patterns for younger kids. But by the time my kids got older, they just wanted a plain pattern one. And you can get like a pack of 7 and then one for every day of school with some extra and then toss them in the wash at the end of the week.
And think about if you get a plainer pattern or color, then it's something that once your kids are out of lunch packing seasons, like yours are, you could use them in other places in your kitchen because they're reusable.
Totally.
Can we talk about like bonus things like thermoses, bags, snack bags, etc.?
Yeah. So I didn't often pack warm lunches like soups or anything that needed a thermos, but I did have, and just like real basic, like Thermos brand Funtainer for when they were small because that comes in a smaller ounces, like I think 10 ounces. And then when they got older, I got a bigger one that I think is made for adults, but I think it's more like maybe even 16 ounces. But then I wouldn't also pack the lunchbox. I would pack
Yeah.
that and just like a couple of like baggies, or I'd grab a couple of those plastic stackable easy lunchboxes that we've
Yeah.
mentioned a bunch of times, which I do really like having around as supplementary, but they're really great for sports snacks. And I'll still grab those every once in a while just to
Yes.
pack extra things for sports or game days. So I think those are worth having.
Yes. The ones we have currently are not Thermos brand. They're Hydro Flask brand. And actually, we bought two in like a very neutral, I think they're both gray color, because that's the kind of thing that Brian can also use when he goes on climbing camping trips too. So it's like he's not taking the Hello Kitty thermos.
Totally. Yeah. The 16-ounce thermos one I have looks very grown up too.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you mentioned baggies, because there is something we talked about, like using the same lunchbox, you could use the same one every day. But then there are a few instances where having some other like supplemental lunch packing containers, and they don't have to be specific to lunch packing, but like the thermos or the reusable zip top bags, like the brand Zip Top or Stasher, that you can throw things in, having some small snack ready containers. And again, those could be like your everyday food storage that you're just like throwing in the lunch bag along with the thermos to make lunch packing easier.
Totally. What about water bottles? This is a hot topic.
Oh, what is hot about this topic? I find
I don't
water
know.
bottles.
I feel like there's so many. When I worked at Cool Mom Picks, when I was really like deep in parenting media, it was like everybody every year wanted, what's the thermos? What keeps the water cold? What is easy to sip out of? What doesn't leak? All of that. I don't know. Do you have like a favorite go-to, or do you change all the time?
Well, when my kids were little, it was different. Like we would do the multi-component sort of cups. Like Hydro Flask makes a great kids cup that has like the little spout, but then you have to chase after the straw that only fits that particular water bottle. Right now, we're on this thing with clean canteens. We have like 6 of them. They're very simple. They have a like twisty lid that has like a sports bottle lid, the kind that you pull up on. And they can be a little bit more expensive. I think they're like maybe $20 each. But then we've also just like replaced the lids. We haven't had to replace the bottles. They don't necessarily keep the water cold. And I feel like am I kind of a jerk to be like, I don't really care if their water's cold?
No, you're not a jerk. It doesn't matter. It's like we've talked so many times about how all 4 of our kids will eat a cold quesadilla. And some parents are like, that just will not work for my kid.
Yes.
I think it's just your kid. This is one where my kids are pretty serious. My kids want cold water.
Okay. So what do you send
They
water
won't
in?
drink it if it isn't cold. So I literally like pack, because I still do pack water. They still carry a water bottle to school every day. And I pack it almost all the way to the top with ice and then fill it up. And then that, like if the ice melts, it's great because it's still really cold. But the ice doesn't melt. The latest bottles that we have finally settled on are Takeya, Takeya. I'll link to it. Vacuum insulated stainless steel water bottles. They come in 18 ounces, 24 ounces, 32 ounces. I found them. I like them. What they do have 2 different tops. So you can get a sip top, but I am so freaking over straw anything. Like I cannot. The straw has to fit with a certain thing and lose the straw. And then the whole lid is useless. So this has a screw top, but the screw top is latched on so that it flips over. Like the screw top is not loose. It isn't its own separate piece, which was absolutely critical for my kids.
A true blessing.
A true blessing. But I will say that it's expensive. The 18-ounce bottle is $27.
Okay.
So I would recommend that only if you have kids who are a little bit older who can keep track of their stuff.
Yes.
I think that's too expensive for little kids because they used to lose their bottles all the time. But that's our current favorite, and everyone in the family has one. So Mike has a huge one that he carries around with him. I have one that no one else can see, but Megan, you can because we're recording.
I've seen it. I've seen it in real life.
A million times. And then the boys each have one, and then they're responsible for maintaining it.
There's something really funny for me because the kids have not lost as many water bottles as Brian has lost.
That's
but
hilarious.
Brian is the one who's like, he gets indignant when they leave a water bottle on the bus or at school. I'm like, dude, they're going to get it back tomorrow. Like, at least they know where they lost it.
Yes.
And he'll like have lost his on like a location in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee or Alabama, or like run over it with a dolly on set. Like the most ridiculous things.
That's hilarious.
And he's the one who he likes cold water and he likes the Hydro Flask water bottles, which are like very expensive for basically being brand name.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
So,
okay. So do you want to talk about bags more? I don't have much to contribute because we always just use the sleeve and my boys really never wanted to take a separate bag. They'd rather be hunched over with a 30-pound book bag than carry multiple things. Also, starting in middle school, in our school, it's mandatory that you take an instrument through middle school. So once they got to 5th grade, because our middle school, it's a long story, but starts at 5th, they were also now carrying an instrument. So it's a lot to carry.
I don't have a lot to say about lunch bags. Like you, we've always just gone with whatever is like the lowest profile.
Yeah.
For a long time at Kitchen, I would get and try out new things. Like they make lunch sleeves where you can put all those things in it. It sort of feels like a laptop case. And that seems nice in an ideal. But I also think it's sort of like what you were saying, oh, we just had the same lunch boxes every day. I think if you can be consistent about the bag, it's also easier to keep track of, whether they're carrying it separately or it's in their backpack. Like, I know I have this red lunchbox and that's what I'm going to look for every day. And I think that sort of consistency is like helpful to our kids for eating and also for them not losing their stuff.
Yeah. The one bag I tried that I really liked, and on paper, I'm going to, on paper in the mic, sing the praises of, but actually never really worked for us, which I think is because I always packed a Planet box. So I didn't have the right containers for it. But those Dabawala bags, they're neoprene and they were very soft. They're very malleable. They had cute patterns on them and you could it had the way it's shaped, it's almost like teardrop shaped approximately, with a little round hole for that makes the handle, but you could slip your whole hand through it so that it would hang on your wrist.
Oh yeah.
And you could also kind of scrunch it up if your lunch wasn't taking up all the room inside the bag, and then it could kind of tuck into your backpack. So I did like those as well. And they were washing machine safe.
This does bubble up for me. There are lunch boxes where you don't need a bag. Like I'm thinking of Omi box, which basically has a cooling container around all of the lunch box. So you can just carry that and not have to have the bag. And then last year, or within the last couple of years, Thermos also came out with a lunch box that is that style where it's insulated like a cooler. And so you don't necessarily need a bag. And I think I don't have anything bad to say about either of those brands. It just didn't work for us and what we packed for lunch.
I'm going to say that Omi Box was introduced to us when my kids were a little bit older, so late elementary school, and the container just didn't hold enough food. I couldn't jam enough food into the Omi Box for my kids.
We struggled with Emmett in preschool being able to get the Thermos component open.
Okay.
So I think that's when we moved to the Planet box. So it's just a consideration. How much do your kids eat?
Yes, totally.
This is my, for all the things, whether it's a bag or the lunch box, the Thermos, can your kid independently open it? And you should test that before you send it to school on the first day, because if they can't get into it, there might not be someone who can help them open it and they might miss lunch because they can't get into one compartment.
So all this to say, there are tons of options. It's really about what works for you. You want to think about your kid's age, their ability, their focus, how much they eat. But also, our point here is to be helpful and kind of streamline. It sounds like Planet Box is a winner across all the stages.
Yes.
It's dishwasher safe. It's easy to open. It has different compartments. And then the Pottery barn.
Yes. I would also shout out Easy Lunchboxes if you have a small budget.
Yep.
They're very affordable. They're very lunch packing friendly, and you can throw them in almost any lunch bag.
And if you have expendable budget, I would grab a bunch of those too for snacks and sports and after school activities.
Okay. You know who's going to also have other recommendations that we have not even thought about.
So much to say. This is one where we're really going to lean on you guys, our community. So we hope you've already joined us there. If not, you can join for free at didn'tijustfeedyou.com/community. Or if you want those bonus episodes or access to our recipe archive, join our supporting community.
Follow us on Instagram where we are at Didn't I Just Feed You, and we are not posting daily lunch boxes. Now's a great time to subscribe to Didn't I Just Feed You. A huge thank you to our editor, Samantha Gatzik. I'm Megan.
And I'm Stacy. Stay sane and well fed until next week.
Be sure to subscribe to Didn't I Just Feed You wherever you're listening. And don't forget to rate and review.